Hey, I'm Marlijn, and in this video I'll be rating all primary shotguns in Siege. I'll start at the D tier and work up to the S tier. So if you don't care about a certain shotgun, feel free to skip it. Timestamps are in the description. First up, we've got the D tier, which is reserved for shotguns that aren't viable in any way whatsoever. The only shotgun here is the SG-CQB, a semi-automatic shotgun found on Kapkan, Finka and Fenrir. The SG has the second highest fire rate of all shotguns at 330 RPM. Unfortunately, there are more important stats for shotguns. Getting reliable one-shots at range is much more important, and that's where the SG suffers. It doesn't consistently one-shot at 5 meters, and at 7 meters it often needs 3 or more shots to down, whereas some other semi-automatic shotguns can one-shot up to 6 meters and 2-shot until 9 meters. Because of this, I don't recommend ever using the SG. Now we are moving into the C tier. The shotguns here are rarely viable, but can work with certain strategies. First up in C tier is the M1014, which can be found on Castle, Pulse, Thermite and Ace. It's a semi-automatic shotgun with a fire rate of 200 RPM. Its damage is still mediocre, but it's miles ahead of the SG. It's very likely to 2-shot within 8 meters, but high recoil can make it tricky to land a second shot. Because of this, I wouldn't recommend using the shotgun on any operator aside from Pulse, as a shotgun pairs well with this ability. The Super 90 is also in C tier. It can be found on Frost and Melusi and is a slight upgrade from the M1014, dealing a bit more damage. All other stats are the same. They both have a fire rate of 200 RPM along with high recoil. Considering that Melusi and Frost both have decent SMGs, it's rarely worthwhile to use the Super 90. At the top of C tier is the FO12, which can only be found on Ela. It's a semi-automatic shotgun that likes to go. The FO12 is an upgrade from the SG in every way. It's got higher damage, better range and even a higher fire rate at 400 RPM. Unfortunately, the damage isn't anything special, as it's not even able to one-shot consistently at 5 meters. Even at 7 meters, you might need to land 3 shots. Its moderate recoil does make it possible to land these shots, but unless you've got a specific Ela strat, I wouldn't recommend using the FO12. Up next, we've got the B tier. The shotguns here aren't bad, but they still have some imperfections. They can be viable if they have good synergy with the operator's ability or a secondary weapon. The M870 barely made it into B tier and can be found on Jaeger, Bandit, Thorn and Sentry. It had quite a fall from grace, going from being a fan favorite to mediocrity. The M870's main strength is its fire rate. Even though it's a pump action, it has a fire rate of 100 RPM, which makes it easier to get follow-up shots or to deal with multiple enemies. Unfortunately, the M870 falls flat in the damage category. It can't always one-shot fuse at 5 meters, and even Ash can sometimes survive a shot at 7 meters. The weapon isn't bad if you play around cover, but it's a shadow from its former self. Just use the M416 and MP7 as they're way better. Also in B tier is the ITA-12L, which can be found on Jackal, Mira and Solis. It's a pump action shotgun, so you'd expect it to have pretty high damage. Unfortunately, it deals the lowest damage of all pump action shotguns. However, it's still good enough for an almost guaranteed one-shot on Fuse at 6 meters and the guaranteed one-shot on Ash at 7 meters. In terms of viability, you should only use the ITA on Solis, as the destruction synergizes well with her ability. And because she has an SMG-11, so you're not sacrificing any firepower. Now this is something worth talking about. The SPAS-15 is a semi-automatic shotgun found on Cav and Thunderbird. It has a mix of decent damage and high fire rate, so it's at the top of B tier. It's able to one-shot most of the time at 5 meters, become a guaranteed 2-shot until 8 meters. This, combined with an above average fire rate of 290 RPM, makes it a solid weapon up close. One other important thing to mention is its recoil. It's got the lowest visual recoil of all shotguns. However, it has a nasty side-to-side wobble when shooting, making it a bit more tricky to use at range. But because Thunderbird's AR is quite mediocre and Kev's SMG is even worse, the Spec 15 is actually a viable pick. Now we're in A tier, where we find some of the stronger shotguns, such as the SPAS 12, a semi-automatic shotgun that can be found on Valk and Oryx. Compared to its younger brother, it has a lower fire rate of only 200 RPM in exchange for higher damage. And that's what makes it shine, one-shotting until 6 meters and two-shotting until 10 meters. Combined with controllable recoil, this makes the SPAS 12 a pretty solid weapon, even at range. The only issue is that Valk's MPX and Oryx's T5 are way better, making the SPAS 12 only a situational pick. Further up in A tier is the M590A1, also known as the British shotgun. It can be found on all British operators, Warden and Deimos. This is your typical pump action shotgun with a slow fire rate and high damage up close. It's a one shot until 6 meters, but then quickly becomes inconsistent with frequent 2 shots. At 10 meters it might even need a third shot. What makes the shotgun so great is that most operators with the M590 also have a great secondary. Butte and Smoke have the SMG-11, Warden has the SMG-12 and Deimos has its revolver. This makes the M590 the most viable shotgun, despite there being 3 more shotguns left on this list. One of these shotguns is the SG-CQB, or the French shotgun, which can be found on Doc, Rook, Twitch, Lion and Grim. Most of its stats are similar to the British shotgun, as it's also guaranteed to one-shot at 6 meters. Beyond that, it's a bit more likely to one-shot or deal high damage. Another advantage the French shotgun has is that it's the only pump-action shotgun that can apply a grip. So you can use a horizontal grip to increase your movement speed. Despite all of this, it's still less viable than its British counterpart. All of the operators with the French shotgun only have pistols or revolvers, making it a situational pick. Finally, we're in S tier, where we can find 2 of the best shotguns. And I'm sure this one will be a surprise to some. At the bottom of S tier we have the 612 and 612 SD, which can be found on Ying and on Legion and Nock respectively. Because they share the same stats, I'll treat them as one weapon. The 612 has the perfect combination of damage and fire rate, dealing similar damage to the French and British shotguns, while being a semi-automatic. It's a guaranteed one-shot within 6 meters and it's very likely to two-shot until 11 meters. If you deal low damage or encounter multiple enemies, the 612 can still help you out with its fire rate of 200 RPM. On defense, it's a great shotgun that's excellent for holding down power positions. On attack, it's a bit more of a situational pick. To finish this list off, we've got the king of shotguns, the Supernova. The Supernova is a pump-action shotgun that can be found on Echo, Hibana and Amaru. It's infamous for dealing a crazy amount of damage, which can be seen in how often it one-shots. It's a guaranteed one-shot until 7 meters and is very likely to one-shot until 9 meters. The only drawback of the Supernova is its fire rate, which is slightly lower than the other pump-action shotguns at 75 RPM. However, this is rarely something that gets you killed if you play around cover. The Supernova is a viable pick for every operator that has it, because they all also have a secondary SMG. It works especially well on Echo for locking down close range angles and for rushes with Amaru. That's all for this video. I hope it was interesting to watch, and if you'd like to see more of this content, please consider subscribing. And please let me know why I'm completely wrong in the comments. See ya!